But the question, of course, is, if God is not like these that I just showed you, then great, cut to the chase. What is God really, truly like? Well, let me tell you a story about that. Basically, I spent 4 years of high school snow jobbing my parents out of enough money to engage in my recreational activities, most of which involved organically grown recreational aids. But anyway, senior year of high school, Beaumont, Texas, I was a wee bit over my head on some recreational activity debts. And this guy had been stringing me along my whole senior year for drugs. I told him I had college money coming when I graduated, which was a crock. But he was dumb enough to believe me until toward the end of my spring semester, senior year. And then the guy started bugging me for the money. He corners me one Friday afternoon. He says, "I want the money for the drugs. I want it Saturday or you're dead." And that sort of constituted a crisis on my part. Since I didn't have anywhere near the money I owed him. I didn't have any money. And so I decided I needed to do something. So what I did was, it was a Friday afternoon when he cornered me. So that Friday night I went out and I partied. And my dad always has $300 hidden in the sock drawer for emergencies, you know. And I figured, this is an emergency. And so I lifted the $300, but then my dad's wallet's sitting right there on the dresser. My dad is a credit card collector, and he and I have the same first and last name. So he's got a wallet full of credit cards. I left him the wallet, left him his driver's license, but I took every one of his credit cards. And well, long story short, I left Beaumont. It takes me about a week. I get to Los Angeles, and of course the $300, you know, is gone by the time I get to Los Angeles. But I got these credit cards. Eventually, of course, all these credit cards max. So I wind up living on the street, you know, in Los Angeles, along with everybody else and their dog. And I was fairly good at this. I'm a fast talker, and I can assume roles when necessary. So I was doing stuff that I needed to do to get by. And, well, let's just leave it at that. We won't go into that here. Eventually, of course, I get sick, which is like a bad career move. If you live on the street, you do not want to get sick. Because if you get sick when you live on the street, then you start getting beat up a lot. And then sick people start beating you up, and you get sicker. And then eventually, you know, there's like stray dogs looking at you, you know, like, I could take this guy. You don't want to get that sick. So I was sort of approaching the stray dog level of sick, right? I mean, I was pitiful. I probably weighed 120 pounds. I was a walking skeleton. I had something. I had mono, or I don't know what I had, but I was pitiful. And I was all scraggly looking, you know, sores all over. I'd gotten beat up. So I got some ratty looking jeans, a ratty shirt. You know, my face is beat up. I weigh 120 pounds. I'm standing in the middle of South Central LA holding a pillowcase full of marijuana. At this point, I decided Los Angeles is not a healthy place. So I decided, okay, fine, I'll go to San Francisco. And I tell the hippie I'm going to San Francisco. The hippie tells me he's going to Key West, Florida. You know, and I figured, close enough. And so we get in this VW bus, and this thing is maxing at like probably 45 miles an hour, right? So we're going the southern route, the I-10 route, because we're not going over any mountains with this VW bus. So we're going through the desert, you know. So we're like in central East Texas area, you know. It's the middle of the night. This guy's asleep. I'm driving the bus. I don't know. I just get to thinking, you know, about my dad and stuff. And I-10, right? Goes right through Beaumont. So I get this guy to drop me off in Beaumont, you know. I get there. It's probably about 6 o'clock, right? And I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe I should just like maybe go take a look at my folks' house, right? To, like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a plan here. I don't even know what I'm thinking. It's the middle of winter. It's pitch black. I get to my folks' house. It's probably 7 o'clock, 7:30, something like that. And I'm walking down the street. My folks live on a dead end, a cul-de-sac. And they're 6 up from the end on the left. And there's a street light 2 houses down this way, 2 houses down that way, and I'm looking at their house, and something is not clicking here, right? the house, from what I could tell, is painted the wrong color. And there's no cars in the driveway, which there ought to be at this time of night. And there's no lights on the house, which there should be at this time of night. And it looks like there's not a name on the mailbox, which, from what I can remember anyway, there was when I left. And I'm looking at this house, and I'm thinking, great. They moved. Didn't even tell me. I mean, I can't figure out who lives in this stinking house, right? So finally, I kind of work up my nerve, and I figure, okay, just look in the mailbox, see what's in the mailbox, right? Just look in the mailbox. So it's dark out, so I'm kind of walking, make sure I'm in the shadows, right? And so I walk up, and I kind of sneak up on this mailbox, right? Which was tough, because it was like moving, And so I walk up to the mailbox, and I open the mailbox, and I pull out the mail. There's 2 bills in the mailbox, both of them for my dad. There's a bill and a magazine in the mailbox for my mom. And there's a note in the mailbox. That's for me. It's taped to the door of the mailbox, the note, to the inside of the door, with masking tape around the edges. The note's been rained on it. The ink's kind of runny, and the masking tape's curling. You know how the masking tape does when it gets hot? It kind of curls up and stuff. And so it's kind of curling up. And the note says. The note says, welcome home. There's sandwich stuff in the fridge. There's clean sheets on your bed. The key to the back door is in the same old hiding place. We missed you, Mom and Dad. Yeah, so I untaped the note, and I stuck the note in my pocket, and don't ask me why I did that. I don't know. Souvenir. I don't know. And I go across the street from my folks' house. I'm not going in the house without them being inside the house first. No way. I go in the house without them being there first. Technically, that's breaking and entering. I did learn a little law in Los Angeles. They will be in the house before I show my face. So I go to the end of the street, actually, to the Greens' house. The Greens, our neighbors, they have a real big yard. Their house is way back from the street. You can't even see their house from the street. But right up by their house, the Greens have azalea bushes, right? These like mango azaleas, right? Like a family of 6 could comfortably live in these azaleas. So I crawl in these azaleas, and I'm freezing. I got no shoes on, and I got a ratty army jacket that I got at the Goodwill for $3. So this thing's all wrapped around me, right? I'm trying to stay warm, and I'm doing this, poking like this, looking through the azaleas, watching my folks' house, waiting for somebody to show. My dad shows about 8:30 that night. I found out later my mom's out of town for the night, and my dad worked late and stopped by a restaurant on the way home for something to eat. So my dad, he drives up in the driveway, my dad, and he gets out of his Buick and he walks over to the mailbox to check the mail, right? No sweat. He opens the mailbox door, my dad. He pulls out the mail. He's closing the mailbox door. All of a sudden, my dad's like staring at this mailbox door where the note had been taped, right? He stares at this mailbox door. He looks toward the house. He looks around like this. He stares at the door. He looks around. He's like, wham! Slams this mailbox door, hightails it into the house. This was weird. First thing my dad does, he runs inside the house and he flips on the front porch light, right? No sweat, right? But then within probably like 45 seconds, my dad, he runs through the entire house. He turns on every stinking light in the house. You got to know my dad to appreciate this light business. My dad is the electricity sheriff, right? Every light in the house is on. The last light he turns on, we got a big picture window in front of our house. It's like yay wide. So he's got a chair sitting right in front of the window, floor lamp by the chair. He walks over, he turns on the floor lamp, he sits down in this chair. He doesn't take off his tie, his coat, nothing. He sits down in his chair, he looks out this window. All night he does this. He does not move. I'm sitting in the azaleas, losing whatever nerve I thought I might possibly have very rapidly. I smoked a couple of joints, see if I could find some nerve. I didn't find any nerve. About probably 11:30 at night, my dad stands up, takes off his tie, his coat, and he like drapes them over the chair. And so I'm thinking, okay, he's going to bed. I saw him. He's not dead. Fine, I can move along. My dad gets out of the chair, he walks up to the window like this, and he stands there with his nose pressed to the window for probably 30 minutes. And then he sits back down in the chair. I smoked all the stems in the bottom of the pillowcase, and I fell asleep. I woke up about 5 o'clock in the morning. It was pouring down rain. I was sopping wet. I was freezing cold. I was very sober. I had the munchies. And I just thought, oh man, you better get out of here. The sun's going to come up soon, and when the sun comes up, the neighbors will see you, and somebody's calling the cops, no doubt. Leave fast. Go find some Oreos for breakfast or something. So I crawl out of the azaleas, and I start walking down the street, man. There's only one way out of the neighborhood. It's like past my folks' house. So I got my head down, and I'm moving. And I get like almost in front of my folks' house, and I just figure, okay, just take a look at their house one last time, one last look sort of thing. I don't know. So I look up, and he hadn't moved, my dad. He's sitting in the chair. He's kind of slouched down. I can't tell if he's asleep or awake, right? So I'm frozen in the middle of the street right in front of his house. I'm thinking, whoa, man, what do I do? Okay, maybe he's asleep, so I could just run, right? But maybe he's not asleep. Maybe he's awake, so I should turn. What do I do? Before I can even decide what to do, my dad is out of the chair like this at the window. So I turned. I got maybe 50 yards from the middle of the street to his front doorbell. 50 yards. I'm walking real slow with my head down. 50 yards. I got 50 yards to put together a little snow job speech. You guys know how those go, right? It's like, whoa, I'm late? 3 years past curfew. Yeah. And so I'm like, trying to get something together. I walk up to the doorbell before I lost my nerve. I ring the doorbell. It's like the weirdest thing. It's like when I rang the doorbell, it's like all my nerve just like goes out my finger or something. And I couldn't even look up. I'm just standing there, staring at the door thing, the threshold. My dad answers the door. It takes him about 5 seconds. I could tell it's my dad. I'm staring at his shoes, wingtips. And he says nothing, my dad, and I stare at his shoes, and he says nothing, and I stare at his shoes, and he says nothing, and I say nothing, and my dad normally has a lot to say, and I can figure out, I don't know, why isn't he saying something, right? I'm thinking, come on, man, just say something, just cuss me out, all right? Just slam the door in my face, cuss me out, do something. He says nothing. So finally, I looked up to see why he was saying nothing. And he was just standing there. Just looking at me. Now, he's crying. Not sad crying, just kind of crying, happy crying, I guess. I don't know. It wasn't noisy crying. It was just kind of quiet crying. He was crying. I didn't know what to do, I stood there. I looked at his shoes some more, and I started into my speech finally. I get like maybe a sentence into my little speech. And my dad, my daddy would not let me give my speech. He started hugging me. He would not let go of me. Every time I start to give my speech, he put his hand on my mouth. And then my dad, it was the weirdest thing. He kind of took my hand in his, He put his big old hand on my shoulder, and I just kind of hugged his back, and it's almost like we were dancing, you know. I was just dancing with my dad. I quit dancing eventually. I was hungry. He fixed me breakfast, French toast. It's my favorite thing. You know, I'll tell you guys something. I didn't get what I expected from him. I sure did not get what I deserved. Look, I'm not complaining. As a matter of fact, that's made all the difference in the world.
Well, he asked me to dance, and I'd never tried dancing before. I had visions of saints and angels laughing us right off the floor. No, I protested, it just wouldn't be any good. He gently insisted, and finally I told